Right, Alex, I'm very interested to get your thoughts on this because Richard Moore, the head of MI6, was giving a speech a couple of days ago. The headline that was in the mainstream press was with respect to this, as they witnessed the venality, infighting, and sheer callous incompetence of their leaders. He's talking about the Russians in this part of the speech. The human factor is at its worst, he said. Many Russians are wrestling with the same dilemmas and the same tugs of conscience as their predecessors did in 1968. And he went on to say, I invite them to do what others have already done this past 18 months and join hands with us. Our door is always open. So he's absolutely calling for so-called dissident Russians to get involved with the security service. Is this a good idea? Secret intelligence service, sorry.
It might not be a good idea for all of them. Sir Richard does rather hint heavily in the speech with reference to an Abwehr agent in 1944 that if these enticed Russians come to a sticky end, then SIS will take care of their kith and kin for the next couple of generations. He's actually talking over the heads of his Czech hosts in this speech. You'll find the speech in the show notes with punctuational errors, which SIS never used to make, by the way. But he's speaking over the Czechs' heads to the Russians and saying, if you don't like it, if you think this is a repeat of the 1968 Prague Spring, and if you sympathize as Sakharov did with Dubček back then join our merry crew, essentially. So it's a bit of an untoward statement, but I think you have more to cover on the speech.
Yes, just one other little quote. Let's bring it on screen. My teams are now using AI to augment but not replace their own judgment about how people might act in various situations. They're combining their skills with AI and bulk data to identify and disrupt the flow of weapons to Russia for use against Ukraine. It's incredible how many excuses there are for this insatiable appetite for bulk data collection, Alex, by the security services of all kinds and the intelligence services of all kinds. But that's quite a statement there, particularly in light of what we've already covered today.
Quite. I mean, Sir Richard is using, as British spokesman do abroad, a lot of flowery language in the early part of the speech. People aren't destroyed, but they're pulverized and ravaged in the speech. I don't think the Czechs necessarily understood the language, but it was showing off for an international audience. There was a lot going on there. The key idea was the human factor. But this AI towards the end is another reason why you must review the Jobst Landgraber and Barry Smith interview we did on AI, because Sir Richard scores a bullseye. He says the wrongest thing you could say about AI when he's at the end of the speech says the Chinese are even worse than the Russians, and says the Chinese are so bad that we're having to use AI to assist our officers in deciding what our agents and our adversaries' actions may be. It's the very thing that Jobst and Barry say is completely impossible for AI with the credentials they have, namely judging what an individual human mind will do. Sir Richard says is the key use for AI fighting the good fight.
Yes, indeed. Okay, now let's move on. If you like what the UK Column does, you'd like to support us, please head over to community.ukcolumn.org. There are options to help us out there. You can pick up something at the UK Column shop, but please do share anything you find on the ukcolumn.org, UK Column extracts.co.uk, or any of the other platforms. So I'll just mention that a couple of things that are going on the website at the moment. David Cartland, an interview that was up yesterday. If you didn't see it on yesterday's 1 p.m. live stream, that is there. You can follow that up. Quick advertisement for the latest Freedom Festival, Freedom Music Fest 2023. This is Katie Jo Murfin's event taking place, what starts today, taking place over the next couple of days. I'm sure everybody is welcome at that. Reminder that AV13 is taking place on the 22nd of October 2023. And the AV team would just like us to remind everybody about that. Tickets still available if you want to go to that. And Alex, very briefly, a couple of nice mentions here.
Down in Kent, there's been this wonderful snap of a gentleman out on the streets urging people to switch off BBC Lies and watch UK Column. And you might think, wonderful. Where's this come from, however? It's come from a hatchet job. Kent Online, all of our local papers have been amalgamated into this no competition environment. So it's a brand that doesn't really have anything to do with Kent anymore. But the local franchise in Kent, Kent Online, is discussing the rebels on Roundabouts who are spreading conspiracy theories in Kent. So that's UK Column has got a mention in local mainstream press on this basis, at least in image, not in text. But who wrote it? Daniel Essen, the local democracy reporter. He's funded, of course, by the British Broadcasting Corporation, because on the latest version of its charter, its license to operate from the Crown, the BBC undertook to pay 165 jobs for people in various parts of the United Kingdom to report on what might be called our democracy, if you're Rishi Sunak or Sir Richard Moore.
Yes, and then you wanted to finally just remind us about this on the UK Column website.
Yes, a Eurocrat is writing for us for the second time, Irene Lost, from Eastern Europe, and she has got a thought-provoking piece up on what's really going on with the French riots. Let's talk about France, a story of mitigation. She entitles it that because she is even-handed between left and right-wing anarchist and pro-government narratives on what's going on, and urges people finally to face up to the rivenness of their society. Otherwise, there will be no reconciliation.
Okay, now let's move on.